Welcome to WP-Tonic, episode 73. Today on WP-Tonic, we have Eric Hamm. Eric Hamm is the owner of Cobalt and the master of Dynamic. My absolute favorite thing about WordPress is Dynamic. Eric, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Jonathan, let you take it away. I've only been doing WordPress for 2 years, but I started with Dynamic and Genesis. And the reason why I did that is a good friend of ours who has about a 6 or 7 man shop here uses Dynamic Genesis, your products exclusively for car dealer apps.
Oh, cool.
So that's how I got into it. It's been really good for me.
Awesome.
Oh, thanks, Eric, for joining us. We've been looking forward to this interview. And, of course, Bill's just starstruck. You know, he's not been able to say anything for the whole day. So let's have a bit of history of why did you decide to build this product, Eric? You know, that's probably taken over your life.
Yeah, pretty much has. Yeah, it's pretty much an organic kind of thing. I used to do like on-site computer service for about 6 years, from like 2003 to 2008, and after the housing crash happened and like half of my business kind of left because I had a lot of real estate agents and stuff. I ended up doing WordPress. Like I was doing like blogging and stuff, and I was going to try to make money with Google ads or something, and that didn't really pan out. But from there, I ended up getting involved, like because tech was kind of my background, I naturally gravitated towards custom coding themes and just messing around. And so I started doing WordPress web design, and that allowed me to kind of quickly transition to, the internet as far as a business, and everything. But I personally enjoyed coding the themes more than I did working with individual clients for specific websites and things like that. And so I had developed a theme called Frugal. I called it Frugal. It was just a free theme that I used for my own web design stuff. So I wouldn't have to have dozens and dozens of themes to kind of work through and everything. And a lot of people really liked the theme. And so I ended up, people were asking about it, how they could get their hands on it. So I was just giving it away for free. And after like 1,500 downloads, somebody said, why don't you stick like a newsletter sign up or something, get something out of it. And so I did that. And after a few more thousand downloads, somebody suggested that I turn it into a premium product and, put some no coding stuff on there. And really, I built initially this theme that at the time was called Frugal for myself, because I was doing a lot of web design with WordPress, and I was just getting sick of recoding things over and over. Every time there was a new project, I'd have to, kind of recode stuff or grab, snippets from different places. And so I just built in this kind of interface that allowed me to get like the 80% of the design done really quickly, importing some options, making a few tweaks, and then I could, do the refinements after that. And so that was like Frugal Premium. And I was selling that, and that quickly became my main, business and was supporting my family. That was a good revenue stream. And then from there, it transitioned over to the Catalyst framework with the dynamic child theme for that. And then eventually I decided to move fully over to Genesis with Dynamic Website Builder, which is basically Catalyst and Dynamic built into this child theme for the Genesis framework.
Oh, thank you for that very extensive explanation, Eric. Just one thing, management, Bill, can you make me a host?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've sort of rushed a little bit.
So, Eric, you made that sound very easy in a way. I don't know what your programming experience before you got into WordPress was like, but it's no mean feat developing a commercial plugin, and then in some ways you developed a kind of framework upon a framework, and that's no technically a mean feat. So did you have extensive programming knowledge before you attempt, or was it ignorance led to you just diving in and you did it?
Yeah, it was just diving in. It was, like I said, I've always had kind of a tech background and everything, but usually it was in more like hardware and repair and stuff like that. More than anything, it was just I had a desire, I had a need, I had to support my family, and I really enjoyed playing with it. So it just kind of gave me the motivation to, get online and start learning PHP. And, I already knew some basic like CSS and HTML and stuff, but I needed to learn PHP and JavaScript and jQuery and things like that. The cool thing was I got into it back in 2008. And so back then themes were a lot more simple. And so, it was a lot of what I was doing like I would say Frugal Premium was definitely one of the first and definitely probably the most robust no coding design options kind of theme back then, because all they had back then was like maybe Thesis had a few no coding, like a few color picker options, or Headway didn't come out until like 6 months after Frugal did. And so it was kind of like most of the themes back then were just basic, like, a couple files, with some images in them. And so I was able to kind of get into it when things were simpler. And then over the years, as my, coding skills have progressed, so has the market. So like, for example, if I were to get into it now, it would be a bit more overwhelming, I think, because I think the market has advanced a lot, in the last 6 years.
Yeah, it's certainly difficult for the generalist, but I think Eric has been very mild. He's obviously a semi-genius.
Oh, yeah, right.
So what led you to kind of base your livelihood, your business, your sweat on Genesis? Your products are totally linked to the Genesis framework. What led to that?
Well, I think, when I was doing Catalyst, Genesis was kind of my biggest competition at the time. And of course, Genesis has always been a much bigger framework than I think Catalyst ever was, as far as, especially once it kind of connected with Copyblogger Media. And it was just kind of a big time thing. But that was fine because I had my own little niche and everything. But I was finding myself spending a lot of time tweaking the framework parts when I really wanted to focus my attention more on the design, like on dynamic, basically, on kind of the no coding options and the different ways to interface custom coding in, with the hook boxes and different things like that. And so I liked the idea of just shifting over to the framework that was already kind of the most popular one out there, and at the same time being able to put more of my attention on the part that I really wanted to focus on and let Genesis developers focus on the framework. So and then on a side note, as you were mentioning, I do have everything kind of tied to Genesis, but I think I listened to some of Carrie Dill's interview last week, or that you guys did, and she mentioned about just hypothetically, let's say Genesis left or did something different or whatever. The point is, you always need to be prepared to kind of take whatever you're doing and plug it into a different framework or a different platform or whatever. And for me, since I've already kind of had my own framework, it wouldn't be at the end of the world if I had to just recreate another framework to plug in my tools. But as she was saying, I don't see Genesis going anywhere anytime soon. And they've been really good about third-party developers and third-party tools. They want there to be a healthy third-party development, scene and everything. So.
Yeah, I think, I've had Brian Clark on the show. He was very generous to come on our podcast, and he seems a very capable and sensible CEO that understands open source and the community very clearly, doesn't he, Eric?
Yeah, definitely. I think that that kind of merger or whatever between the Bryans, worked out really well for the community, because it added a lot of stability. I mean, not that there wasn't already a lot of stability, but it created a larger kind of company that allowed the different people to kind of focus on their different areas. And I think it's been all in all, it's been a good thing for everybody. I haven't noticed anything like nothing's changed in a bad way with all of that, other than their intense focus on Rainmaker and everything, which again, like I said, it's been fine with me. I think the thing with me is I'm not really, I know, like with Carrie, for example, I know she's more integrated into the community of Genesis, whereas I certainly appreciate that community and everything. And I definitely, that's a good thing. But for me, I already kind of had my own community with Catalyst and everything. And so when we connected, it was more of just a mutual benefit thing. But I've kind of got my own little world over here, and Genesis just provides a solid, foundation to build off of.
A bit more to that, Eric. I think you're the power behind the throne to some extent. So we're going for a break now, Eric, but we'll be back soon. I'm off to my co-host, Bill Conrad.
Well, we want to thank our sponsors, Share the Oils in Northern Nevada. And also we want to give a little kick for Jonathan in the WP-Tonic. the main product out there, which is DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean, that's what I've just installed and started using as a provider. And Jonathan is now setting up people, getting you all squared away on DigitalOcean. No, it has no cPanel. So you really need some expertise to do that at solid state. And of course, don't forget to go over to my site, netcasting101.com, to learn all the tricks on netcasting. So Jonathan, why don't you, anything else you want to talk about DigitalOcean? No cPanel, a lot of work.
Great job, Bill.
It works. Anyway.
Super fast.
Enough for the commercials. Eric, we're going to give you the second commercial, the second break in about 7 or 8 minutes from now. But I'm going to ask the first question coming back. Being a business guy, I came into this learning WordPress. I've been around computer systems and processes for 25 years. But I came back after a special working overseas, and I learned WordPress in the last couple of years. I stumbled into Genesis with Dynamic. And by far, it's the best thing I did. I think it sped me up. I'm learning so much. But I'm at the point now where graphic design, things of that nature, it's the next level. I've learned your fat footer and playing around with your front page. What's a quick way to get in and use your product Dynamic and get the graphic design working with the fat footer with the big, any tricks?
When you say the graphic design, like, can you clarify?
Just get good graphics, putting them in. Like, for example, going to the next level to understand WordPress. If you look at my sites, they look nice. They function very well. They're fast. And the fat footers, I'm having some challenges on the widgets, getting good graphics and just what best way to apply a graphic to one of your widgets, like on the fat footer at the top.
Right.
And some of your,
well, it's hard because there's depends on the design of the site or whatever. You can always it depends on the situation, I guess. Because for example, let's say you wanted to put a banner, kind of an image that's stretched across the top of, like the feature top area. Let's say the feature top, widget area section enabled. There's different ways that you can do that with some custom CSS. You can upload it through the image uploader and then, use a little custom CSS or whatever thing. I think the two best ways to learn that kind of stuff, number one, would be to find a tutorial that might provide that information. And if there isn't one, you can suggest one in the forum or even shoot me an email and ask, about a tutorial, maybe give me some specifics that I could use as examples to kind of go on, because anything that I think that several people or more could benefit from, it's worth my time to specifically create a tutorial for that. But also that's another reason we create a lot of these skins is because the skins provide I call them design starting points. So they're basically ways of being able to just pull in roughly what you're trying to do, and then you can kind of reverse engineer. You can see how I did it myself, and then you can not only do it for that design, but then now you've kind of learned how to do that kind of thing. So.
I wanted to say that your tutorials are excellent. I've gone through all of them, the initial ones. Sometimes going back and finding a key was unique. I'm trying to think of the skin that I like so much. I've renamed them so many times that I can't tell. Some of your modern design skins with the sliders, and not the sliders, but the images behind them. You can
right. Yeah.
Those are pretty neat.
Yeah, thanks.
Enterprise. I think it's Enterprise.
Enterprise is one of the ones that, kind of the backgrounds kind of move with as you scroll down and everything. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the whole skin interface thing. I think when you first check it out, you're like, it's like another layer, right? You've got WordPress as the platform, then you've got Genesis as the framework, then you've got Dynamic as the child, and then you're like, now you've got skins on top of that. But I think once you get it and you kind of understand the purpose behind the skins, you'll realize, that they're really nice. It's what's funny about the skins is initially all they were was just simply import, export the design options, right? It's just like you create, you tweak the design options and then you spit out a little DAT file and there you go. It's, you can import it on a live site or you can import on your next design and then tweak it or whatever. But what I found was I was trying to do kind of like snapshots where I'd basically make it so you could kind of say, well, let me set these settings aside and I might come back to them later, or let me tweak these and I'll rename this to something different. And so then it kind of morphed into, why don't I just basically create my own little theming kind of page, you can call them skins or whatever, and then allow people to create versions of different designs or create entirely new designs and have them all readily available right in the interface. So you could just activate one and then boom, you've got it. If you want to tweak this, design and make it a little different, then you just rename it. And then all of a sudden it's a similar skin, but it's slightly different. And it's just a way of basically taking all those design options and just putting them into these little it compartmentalizes everything. And like I said, once you get it, it really allows the user to use them in that way, and then allows me to be able to have the question, how do I do this? And I can just create a skin and be like, here, import this, and that'll give you, an example of how to do that.
That's great, Eric. Before we go on to our next question, I just want to say to folk, Bill will be watching the questions. You got any questions for Eric? Eric's, I think, agreed when we had our last conversation here, stay on for some questions. So bung your question in first, and then we'll ask you to log in when we open it up after, and you can ask Eric a question directly. So we'll move on, Eric. I've got a couple of questions. The first one is, I wasn't aware that dynamic was a theme, actually. Was there a debate in your mind to do that, or to turn it into actual plugin? Was there a bit of a debate, or was it always going to be a child theme on top of Genesis?
Well, first of all, I guess one thing to mention, actually, Dynamic for Genesis was something I developed about a year before I transitioned over to Genesis. So actually, I had that theme. The only reason I even created it was because people were asking, people would say, I have to use the Genesis framework, or I want to use the Genesis framework, but I love what you have with Catalyst. Do you offer anything for Genesis? And we had so many people asking, I finally just created this Dynamic for Genesis, theme. And so that was about a year before I transitioned over. And then after I did that, shortly thereafter, I created the Genesis Extender plugin, which is basically all the custom options of Dynamic. So not the no coding design options, but the custom hook boxes, custom widget areas, custom CSS, front end CSS builder, all that good stuff. And so I created that again, several months, maybe 6 months, 9 months before I moved over fully to Genesis. So that was kind of already established before I moved over. And so there was never really a thought about it. Then when people would ask about, how do I use Dynamic with X child theme, with whatever, minimum pro or whatever it is, I'd have to say, well, you can use Genesis Extender, but Dynamic is a theme. And the basic, I would say, as far as that's concerned, there's a lot more involved with the no coding design options and a pre-customized child theme, because to make that work together, you have to basically create all these unique default values for that particular design. So if you have, say, 30 or 40 child themes to work with, you have to create 30 or 40 different defaults and have it perfectly integrate and everything. And I know, I'm not, not to plug, somebody else's thing that, is potential competition, but there's, of course, the Design Palette Pro plugin, which is a Genesis plugin that as far as I know, works well, and it provides no coding design options for a lot of the Genesis child themes. And I know what they're doing is basically creating a bunch of these default values for all these different themes. So it's a lot of work involved to integrate, and also you're not quite as free to create the flexibility. So, for example, you can do way more with Dynamic than you can with Design Palette Pro, but that's because it's all about one specific theme, and I don't have to accommodate 40 different designs and things like that. So there's a lot to it. It's kind of hard to explain.
No, you clarified that quite effectively, Eric. Okay. So you're given a picture why you went down the theme, and it's quite understandable, even if you were just going to provide it for the Studio Press themes, not deal with the third-party Genesis.
Right.
But you've explained that quite here. You must, in a way, with another plugin, Beaver Builder. A lot of people now have kind of combined your product with Beaver Builder with Genesis, and there's been a lot of activity on the blogs, and a lot of people have used that combination, and it's become quite kind of, in some ways, regeneratized the kind of interest in Genesis from people that maybe wouldn't look at it. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Because there's like Divi theme. Obviously, there's Headway, and there's several big themes that not only provide kind of the no coding design options, but give you the page building. See, I mean, that's kind of those are kind of the three different areas. You've got the framework, that foundation, and then you have the design. And so if you're not really a hardcore coder, it can be really useful to have lots of design options and things like that. And then the third one is the page building. And so, for example, with Dynamic, I do include, the easy static homepage and the fat footer and the feature top, but that's kind of more just like a basic kind of either getting started or just for simple sites, simple designs or whatever. You can do a good amount of combinations, but if you want like pretty complex, huge home pages and stuff like that, you may, what people you would in the past do is they would do the easy static homepage and then they would kind of build off of that with some custom coding or maybe do whatever. But so yeah, once they added in like Beaver Builder, for example, you can really now, in 10 minutes you can have a beautiful homepage, really easily done without any coding or anything like that. And I'll mention, so when Beaver Builder came out, and then people were asking, even Divi I think's got a plugin that works now with Genesis, I think, for page building. I can't remember. And then there's another. I think there's possibly a free one. There's a bunch of these page builders coming out more and more. And early on, when they first started coming out, people were asking, when's Dynamic going to come out with the Dynamic page builder or whatever? And I kind of chewed on it a little bit, but when they were coming out more and more, I would play with them. And personally, I thought they were awesome. And there was so much, I could tell there was a team of developers that put everything they had into that. I mean, it's a lot of, it's a pretty big time plugin, just Beaver Builder, for example, to work really well. And I felt like that I basically at that point I could either try to reinvent the wheel or I could just do what I can to make my product work as well with these other products as I could. And so I came out with the page builder page template that works really well with Beaver Builder and things like that. And people have found that they work really well together. And so I just keep my focus on what I feel like Dynamic does. And then, yeah, they do a good job of, igniting the interest in Genesis. Yes.
Oh, thanks, Eric. We're going into our next break, folks. So Bill, my co-host, is going to take over.
Oh no, it must have been a Russian plane. Anyway, Eric, we're back. We're on a break right now, and we're back for your commercial. So tell us a little bit about your business, how we get a hold of you, how we buy your product, things of that nature. And what's your best? What product should we start with?
Sure. So you basically get in touch with me, either email me through the contact form on cobaltapps.com. Or if you're already a member, you can obviously log into your My Account page and contact me through that contact form or our support team. But Eric Hamm on Twitter or Cobalt Apps on Twitter, and then you can Cobalt Apps on Facebook. And if you're going to start with something, we got two products. It's the Genesis Extender plugin and Dynamic Website Builder. It just depends on what you need. Whether you need a full-blown no coding design options kind of child theme, or if you need just something to make customizing your pre-customized child theme, then use the Extender plugin. So.
Very good. Back to you, Jonathan.
Yeah, so to continue, recently you had an update 1.93 to the Dynamic Web Builder. So what were some of the key updates or highlights of that update then, Eric?
Yeah, that was just this morning. So I pushed out an update a couple days ago, just a couple of bug fixes and refinements, and then there were a couple header and navbar kind of options or features that a lot of our members have been asking about for quite a while, and so I wanted to kind of squeeze those into an update. And so basically, I just made it super easy to center the title area, your title or logo, to center your nav bars. And I added one new responsive menu option as well. So just there are a couple small things that I think are going to save a decent amount of people a lot of just, a little bit of time. So.
How responsive are your skins, and how much post-testing really do you recommend somebody does when they're utilizing the skins?
You mean testing for responsive design, or?
Well, there's a balance, isn't there? It depends on, it's a bit of a hard question really, because, if they hack away, you give a layout, and I would imagine you test them as much as you can on different browsers and on different devices. But, if they have a good hack, do you think they're aware that there's a certain level where they've got to start testing as well?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly run into the occasional situation where somebody, is wondering why their video or their image or something isn't responding or sticking out the side of their site or whatever on a tablet or whatever, and then you have to kind of get to the point where you recognize, they added some custom CSS that set a fixed width on something or whatever. Basically, with the skins, the great thing about the skins is they're mostly they're mostly the no coding design options. So pretty much with any of the design options, if we made it so whatever you tweak in the design options, you can't break the responsiveness. So it's only that last little bit of custom CSS that I might add into a skin that could have an effect on that. And of course, I make sure that doesn't break the responsiveness. So yeah, at that point, it's just a matter of maybe teaching people good practices, using min widths and max widths instead of using set widths and things like that. But yeah.
So, what's in the future for Cobalt apps? Have you, where are you driving it to in the next year and a half? Have you got a vision where you want to take it, or are you happy as it is, or what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that's something that I've been chewing on for quite a while, just because when you have a theme that's very mature in its development phase or whatever, you got to be careful not to go too far in a certain direction. Like, for example, I know some people will come on the forum and be like, they'll have a laundry list of options that they want me to add to the theme, and they don't realize how many. Like, number one, I don't want to make it bloated or like just make it this big mess or whatever. But number two, you get to a point with that kind of this kind of website builder tool that that you got to draw a line between the helping people customize and actually handing it off to them in a sense of saying, now you got to start learning a little custom CSS and a little, copy and paste PHP and things like that. And so I think I'm trying to find that balance. And I think Dynamic has found that balance in a really good way. And now I've just been trying to just kind of keep those options really incremental and everything. As far as my focus or whatever, one of the things that I've really kind of been really passionate about is putting my focus more on providing a kind of generalized solution to our members to help them become better web designers. And what I mean by that is I know that so many of our members are kind of do-it-yourself web designers. They're internet marketers, or they're one way or another, they use web design to add to their business. And so I would love to find ways of helping people be more effective in that way. Anything from, using the tools like Dynamic, even to go the other direction and helping with things like, how much do you charge? How do you deal with clients that are a pain? How far do you go with A, B, and C, or, whatever. And I know that sounds kind of off in left field, but I just feel like the kind of community that we've built over the years and the products that I have, I think there could be a really great combination of the products plus a kind of community focused, let's help everybody get better at what they do and make more money and be more effective at it. I know that sounds crazy. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, that's kind of, so I don't know how you bottle that. I've thought about like a community, like a club type thing where people can join.
Well, as you were speaking, Eric, have you kind of considered like what Pippin Williams has done on some of digital downloads and WP affiliate? Have you been tempted to kind of build a small kind of offer it out to third party developers and kind of build a small internal marketplace where you got kind of third-party extensions that offer like small micro extensions to your core product?
Yeah, no, I've definitely thought about that. I've actually had a lot of people even suggest that, as far as just, instead of putting so much emphasis on, updating Dynamics features, focus focus on like small plugins and things like that you can sell, or even in some cases you could just offer to add some functionality. I've thought about that. I've also thought about, like I said, kind of a members only kind of forum type area where people can kind of come and kind of like chat about different stuff. But anyway, like I said, my point is not so much to share specifics, because I honestly don't have any specifics. It's more just to say that, number one, I think with Dynamic and Extender, my focus more and more has been incremental, slow, updates, and just keeping it solid, keeping it reliable, and keeping it up to date with Genesis and WordPress, and just maybe erring on the side of, I know, for example, Bill. Okay, the tutorials. I know a lot of people say that it's super helpful, focusing on that kind of stuff. But just help people do better at what they're doing. So.
Yeah, just to wrap it up, because we're running out of time, Eric. And but you've been.
But everyone stay online, Jonathan. We've got to make sure people stay online, because last time we lost like 14 people.
Yeah. I was just about to say it, Bill. We're running out of time for our iTunes segment, but we will be continuing with the discussion. Eric said he would keep on and answer any questions, which is very kind of him. But to wrap up the iTunes section, Eric, at US WordCamp, or WordCamp US, we had... it's obviously that the core WordPress is changing. It's going to change this year, or 2016, quite considerably. And the focus is going to be on JavaScript. How do you see that? Do you see that affecting you and how you develop your core products?
Hey, Jonathan, I'm going to interrupt because I'm going to drive people over to WP-Tonic.com, WP-Tonic.com, to go to YouTube to find the answer. That's the way they get over to your website.
Whatever, Bill.
So everyone wave goodbye for iTunes, and we'll be back on YouTube on WP-Tonic.com for Eric's answer.